Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you to today's Learn at Lunch webinar. We will hear from Mike Mayberry, Executive Director of the Oklahoma Agriculture Mediation Program, as he discusses this program. Mike will answer any questions at the end of his presentation, and you may ask questions through the chat window. You can click the chat button at the bottom of the screen to open the chat window. And I will share a link to the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program in the chat window, as well as a link to the eFarm Management page. Mike, I will turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you, Brent. Another great opportunity for the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program to step up and help everybody understand really what we do. Your audience is immense, so I'm glad for this chance to help share this information about our program with the viewers now and the ones that watch it in a recorded version later. Brent asked me again to come do this, and I thought, what can we do that's different and maybe even more valuable as we try to explain the program? And I tried to come up with a catchy title, and I ended up with 15 reasons Oklahoma producers should know about Oklahoma Ag Mediation. And a couple of days ago, I sat down and started trying to list those, and I knew I could get to 15 pretty easy, but I'd never quite looked at it through those lenses to see what it might look like to you as a producer, and why you would want to call us or contact us to help you with a problem that you may be experiencing. So I think I should talk a little bit about the program itself first, and along the way list the 15. You won't be able to read this, but I actually made a legal pad and got a legal pad out and started writing 15 reasons down in a order that makes sense to me. So let me advance the slide here and show you a little bit about what we're talking about. If I can get my controls back in order here. Okay, so the Ag Mediation Program was first founded in Oklahoma in 1987 through funding by the USDA. That allows us to work as neutrals, and USDA never knows by name that you called us and contacted us to help with whatever you're experiencing. The grant funds come to us directly from Washington. The local office may be a party to the case, but there are other types of cases where there are not. It might be with the bank or somebody else, or a lender, or it may be a neighbor that you're having difficulties with agreeing on whether it be pesticides or fence lines or whatever might be the issue between you and your neighbors. But the USDA doesn't really know the details because this is all confidential, and all they know is how many cases we did a year and the types of cases we do, but not anything more than that about it. So item number one, why would you want to call the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program? And reason number one, for yourself and your family. If you've got stress going on with a neighbor, with the government agency, the USDA, or the bank, or something is going on in your contract, that one of your contracts, or you have a family farm transition that's coming up with how to keep the farm going with all the family members involved, we're there to help you. And that's why we exist. So reason number two, maybe it's not about you and your family. It might be about your neighbors, or someone that you know, another producer friend down the road, or 5 counties over that you know is suffering and having trouble either making ends meet or something going on that is causing them stress. Speaking of no stress, our program is cost-free to you because we're grant funded. There's no cost to either contact or use the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program. So that's another good reason to know about us. So that's 3 solid reasons to start with. There's only 2 of us on staff. So we're a small operation. There's myself as the director and Cheyenne Sparks as our operations and communications manager. So if you call in, there's a good chance you'll speak with Cheyenne. We are both bound to secrecy and confidentiality. So if you call us, you need not worry about who we're going to go tell that you've checked in with us and asked us if we could help. She knows what she's doing on her end on the first and initial discussions. And then typically I am the mediator that comes to meet with you and the other parties to talk about whatever we need to talk about. So as we talk about mediation, it's voluntary. It's an informal process. It involves the people that need to be at the table that might be in dispute or working toward a solution. And then it provides you an opportunity to go through the solution process without necessarily going to court or appealing to a higher authority. We serve all 77 counties. Also, we come to you. We don't typically go ask you to come to Oklahoma City to meet with us. We often come to your home county and find a neutral location there and ask the other parties to come into that area so that it's less travel on. And if anybody's traveling, it's more likely going to be me than you. So that's another good reason. So now we're up. That's the first 4 good reasons to contact OAMP if you have an issue. This slide backs up what I just said. We usually do them in person. We've done over the last several years, we've become pretty good at doing virtual mediations online or by telephone when necessary because of all that was going on over the last couple of years. And we come to try to find a neutral location. Sometimes I'll beg a room at the courthouse or at the local library, even done them in churches, or if it's a family farm transition, we're finding more and more that we're meeting with the family either in an offsite location, or I've been recently around a lot of kitchen tables. So that's another option for that. The environment is safe in many ways. It's safe from the standpoint that I've already mentioned confidentiality, but it's safe because the mediator's job is to keep the room safe and make everybody feel welcome and comfortable. If somebody starts chewing on somebody else, the mediator will ask them not to do that. And actually there's an agreement that we sign before we start a mediation that says, I'm going to behave. I'm not going to talk over somebody when they're speaking. If I disagree with them, I'll do it in a constructive way. And I'll, as the mediator's job is to see that happens and that only one person's talking at a time. And if there's disagreement, help the parties work through that so that they can find the real underlying concern and get past the emotion of the issue. So safety is a number 5 on my list. Potential for an improved outcome. It often happens that in a mediation that we find that people have kind of quit talking or quit listening once it heats up a little bit before the mediation. And so once we get in mediation, because it's calm and pretty much stress-free in the mediation, that it's easy to go forward and examine what really are the issues so that we can get down to the business of solving those if there's a good solution. The mediator is always neutral. If I'm the mediator, I make it clear I'm not on party A's side. I'm not on party B's side. I'm on everybody's side, trying to help get to the best solution possible for that day and for that issue. Sometimes there's only 1 or 2 issues in a mediation. Sometimes there's 20. So we'll make a list as we start and try to check the box on each one of those and say, have we resolved that? And hopefully by the end of the mediation, we can get all 20 or all 3 of them done. You might ask, how long does mediation take? And there is no set time for it. We don't start the clock and stop the clock. We we work through the issues, whatever they are. I would say most of our mediations, if they're single or 2 or 3 issues, are done in 2 hours. I do some other types of mediations occasionally that take longer. Family to farm transitions, there's a lot of talking goes on around the table, so that could take multiple hours or multiple meetings. So we're seeing more and more of that, as I said. Number 6, the potential for an improved outcome. Let's say and that you've been unable to agree with your neighbor over drainage. Pick that as an example. And everybody's kind of drawn a line in the dirt and said, this is as far as I'm willing to go. When everybody comes in and tells their story in front of a mediator, one at a time, it often turns out that the mediator, listening to it fresh for the first time, can maybe generate an idea or two with the parties to find an answer that nobody had thought of. When that happens, if it's agreeable to everyone, then that could become the new outcome that never had been discussed before. That's just a simple example. Many of the cases that we do are far more complex than that and involve either money or contracts or failure of contracts. But the goal is always virtually the same, which is to work out whatever the problem is and see if we can make it better than it was when it first started. It's a good time for me to say that the mediator doesn't decide anything. The mediator talks with the parties, but the parties ultimately make the decision to whatever is going to happen that day. And so, I guess the mediator is there as a facilitator, a peacekeeper, supporter, an organizer, a leader of the meeting, all those things, but to keep the meeting on track and keep it productive for the parties. They wouldn't be there and if they'd been able to solve it on their own. And I'm usually not talking about just one party, I'm talking about all the parties. Had they been able to solve it on their own, they wouldn't need a mediator or eventually a court system to help them solve it if it's going to go that far. So that was item number 6, which is improved outcomes potential. Item 7, and then all the way down to 10, I wrote down better understanding of the issues. I've been in a lot of mediations where the parties really didn't understand what was causing the problem. They thought they did, and they kind of got bowed up in the matter and said, this is the way I'm going to do it or else. And so everybody kind of stalemates on the deal. But many times when they've quit listening, they've lost track of what the real issue is. So the parties need to be reminded, and as a mediator, I often can see situations where it's as simple as understanding what the real issues are in the matter and working toward resolving those, and then everything else kind of takes care of itself. Number 10 on my list is new options may emerge through mediations. Well, as the mediator in the room, sometimes, as I said earlier, the mediator sees something that nobody else saw or generates an idea that is tossed out on the table for everybody to consider. And everybody starts scratching their head and saying, well, I hadn't thought of that. I believe that would work for me. And then the other side says, well, I think that might work for me too. And we're on a course to write it down and make it an agreement between the parties of how to solve the matter that we've been there talking about. My next item was improved communications. Let me see where this goes here. Yeah, I mentioned family farm transitions earlier. That's since the Farm Bill 18, that's been available to us to be able to do those. Prior to then, we could not do family farm transitions, but I know Oklahoma State University and Shannon Farrell have talked that up a lot over the last several years, and now we're able to assist in those. So we appreciate the opportunity to help with that. So where was I going? I was going with improve communications between the parties. Many times I see that the parties have quit listening, quit talking, avoid each other, and that can go to the extremes of turning off the street if you see the other person coming in your direction, or hoping they don't show up in the restaurant that you're in, so you don't have to talk to them or look across the room at them. But in mediations, I see it over and over that communications improve from the process. And once that happens, they probably stay forever. If a person has tuned out and quit listening to what the problem, let's say you've been working with your USDA rep on something, and they're trying to help you, but you're not grasping what they're telling you, I'll probably work it from a completely different angle in a mediation and work very, very hard to make sure everybody understands what the disagreement is truly about, and bring that onto the table. And I've seen over and over how the parties, particularly the producer party, will take that information in this non-threatening environment, hear it clearly, and then say, well, I didn't really understand that, and I didn't know that, and I've obviously made a mistake here. How can I fix it, or can I do it different next year and get back in the program, the USDA program? And typically that's what our goal is, so we can work toward that. So so our PowerPoint here has a couple of interesting slides here. The example in the red box is to talk about family farm transition and wanting to go forward and keep the farm in the family and make it go forward. Sometimes there's many more than 2 children involved, and some of them have become city kids, and some of them are country kids, and 1 or 2 of them are still running the farm. We help talk that out and find something that works for everybody to make it work. But ultimately that decision still rests with the parties, and the parties are typically the parents, and then may also be the other people in the room that are the kids in the family, as they try to work toward the goal. So if they're unable to reach an agreement in a USDA case for eligibility, I'm talking about the yellow box now, there is what's called a denial letter, or a letter that you might receive as a producer that says your eligibility to be in the program has been determined and you're not eligible. On the back of that letter is a couple of paragraphs of what your remedies might be, and one of those is mediation, and it tells how to contact our office. It usually has my name, Mike Mayberry, on there, and our office telephone numbers and address and fax machine, so that you can reach out to us if you seek mediation. Beyond that, there's an appeal. The next paragraph down talks about the National Appeals Division, and you go to appeal, which is a much more formal process. And if you choose to do that and bypass mediation, typically you cannot come back to mediation after you've filed or gone after the appeal and met in the appeal environment. So be sure, if you're going to try mediation, and we hope that you will, because it's so easy and so informal, that you do that first. Also, very, very important, if you get one of those letters from USDA, make sure you respond within 30 days, because if you do not ask for mediation within 30 days, USDA is under no obligation to agree to mediation. So that's one of their rules. And if there are some rare exceptions, but not many, as to why they would say, yes, we'll mediate, if you've waited 40 or 50 days to respond and then ask for mediation. Oops. I think I've already talked about the green slide adequately, so we'll go up one more here. Number 9 on my list is the relationships improve. I have yet to have any mediation where a producer was in the room with a USDA officer and they didn't have a better relation after they left the mediation room than they had when they started. That's not to say they had a bad relationship, but it always comes out better because they got to talk peacefully. Everybody had their extra listening gear on and listened harder. We got down to the real issues, and I've never had a USDA person think that, or at least exhibit in any way that they weren't being fair in the mediation and willing to spend the time to do that and help the producer understand better what the hangup is on whatever's going on. It's 100% factor on that. And USDA starts out with the premise that they're going to help you, and they end with the premise that they're going to help you. I'm not advertising for them, but that's just what I've observed over and over in all the mediations I've done where USDA and a producer were in the room. In a mediation, let's talk about this slide a little bit. Working to solve the problem, no cost, much cheaper than going through the court system. The good working relationships and lack of stress. But on my list, I also wrote that at the end of a mediation, if you've agreed to anything, if all the parties have agreed to anything, we typically end the process by writing down what was agreed to. So everybody walks away with a document that the mediator writes that says, party A is going to do this, party B is going to do this, and then that results in item C happening, which both parties desire to have that happen. So here it is in writing. And so you know what you agreed to. There might be steps that you need to take to get there, and there might be steps that USDA or the other party needs to take to get there. But those are, if we've written a good agreement, which we try to do, it's all written into that agreement, and you'll know what your next steps are. So I consider that another good reason of the 15 that you should know about ag mediation. I think I stressed earlier that it's confidential, but let me say it again. All mediations are confidential. And so nobody knows what you were in the room for or what you talked about in the room. We certainly aren't going to go tell them. And if you're, as one of the parties, you've agreed in the originating document that you're not going to go talk about it because it was a private meeting in lieu of litigation or any further steps to try to resolve the problem. Nobody's allowed to use mediation for discovery purposes, to use legal terms, to find out more so they can work it against you. Mediation is the whole purpose on mediation, and it's a proven process, is designed to solve problems, not provide further opportunities for litigation. So I've got a couple more notes here. There's minimal paperwork on how to engage us for mediation. You can call us. We may ask you to send a copy of the letter that you've received from USDA, so we see what that is. Most of our mediations with USDA are with FSA and RCS, and occasionally rural development. But that doesn't mean that everything's limited to those three. That's just where we see most of them originate from. USDA is not going to ask for a mediation. The producer needs to be the one that does that. So it always has to originate with the producer making the request. Some people ask, well, do I need to bring a lawyer or an accountant or any other professional with me to help me tell my story? The answer is you can, but you don't need to. It's really the parties trying to work it out themselves. It doesn't necessarily make for a worse mediation if you have an accountant there or an attorney there. But the way the mediation process works, since we're down in the basics of what the problem is, it may not be so much of a legal decision as it is an agreement decision of what the parties can do. And I've seen over and over again that the USDA folks they have the manual by which they have to follow, and sometimes they can't go as far as the producer is asking them to do, but they will give it every opportunity to do what they can do to help the producers here in Oklahoma. Easy scheduling, number 14 on my list. Easy scheduling to me means that you call us up, you write us, you email us, somehow you call us, and we'll take it from there and set the process in motion. We'll ask the other party if they're willing to mediate, or they may already know that they're willing to mediate, and we'll set it up and schedule it and come to your town. The whole idea on the privacy concept is when we go to a courthouse or to a church or to a library, we may be in the room, but the doors are going to be closed and nobody outside that room knows what we're talking about. They won't know why you were in there. And then when we leave town, I put the room back the way we found it, and you go home, and I believe you're going to be far less stressed by the time you get home. By the time you start driving toward home, knowing that the solution may be at hand, or you have a better understanding of why the mediation was necessary or the disagreement was occurring. Again, the parties make the agreement. That's number 15 on my list. The parties make that agreement, and the mediator's job is to write down what the agreement is and send everybody away with a copy of the agreement in hand so that they can take the next steps that they promised to take. Let's see what's next here. So that kind of tells not just about our program, but also about the 15 things that you would want to know. I've said for years, I've been doing this now, it'll be 9 years very soon. I've always said to people, you may not need us, but your neighbor down the road or a friend or an acquaintance that you have or another family member may need us. Make sure that you get the word to them that we're a solid program, we're reliable, and we do what we say we're going to do. And we're actually, that old expression, we're here to help. We're not a government agency, we're a nonprofit, and we operate only in Oklahoma in all 77 counties. And we're glad to provide that service for you. So Brent, I'm getting close to the end here. Do you see any questions that have come up?
I do not see any questions at this time.
Okay, does anybody, I know we've got several online with us. Anybody have a question that you'd like to send in to Brent or verbalize to me, if that's possible?
It is possible for people to verbalize their questions if they have them, or ask them through the chat window.
So I would hope that by the fact that you watch this today, I would hope that, or any day that you pick up the recording on Brent's schedule there and the OSU schedule for the webinars, that when you need us, or even if you just think you might need us, feel free to call us and we'll talk it out with you. And or you can go to our website, which is www.ok.gov/mediation, and it'll pop up our website with all the details on how to reach us or things you might want to know about Oklahoma Ag Mediation. So still no questions, Brent?
No questions. And I would like to mention, I did share the link to the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program in the chat window, so people can click on it there.
Great. Thank you for that. I'm going to click on the chat box here. I see it now. Thanks for doing that. For those of you that were here right now, or those in the future that watch it, thank you for taking time to do so. Call us if you need us.
And so I also shared a link to a survey. So we appreciate everyone filling those out to give us valuable feedback for these webinars. We do not have our June webinar scheduled yet. I'm working on that. So I will send out that information through email and social media once that webinar is scheduled. So this is last chance. Feel free to ask questions if you do have any questions now. And Mike's here to answer them.
Well, thank you, everyone, and be sure and call us if you need us. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time. See you in June.